Dr. Harch, can you talk a little bit about your recent meeting? I know that you were talking after the Hollywood Chinese theater screening. You had a conference coming up with the UHMS. Are you allowed to talk about that?
Why not? It's a recorded lecture that I believe is on their website now. People can go view it. I don't know, you might have to pay a little fee, but it's available to all their members. I got invited. Actually, it was the third time, 2012, 2018, and now 2026, to give this lecture on hyperbaric oxygen in traumatic brain injury because I've spent so much of my career kind of researching that and treating patients and so on. And anyways, so the title from the organizer, who is a member of the Hyperbaric Oxygen Committee of that and a former president of that organization, was to give this broad overview and answer the question, where do we stand now? And I went through and showed that these studies are uninterpretable based on this definition that this medical society has given all of these years, and how to really understand it, you have to change your understanding of what this therapy is. And I pointed out that in the medical profession, but it's true of anything, the longer that people have convictions and the more energy,
Beliefs.
reputation,
Beliefs.
effort that's expended in defending this belief and entrenching it, the more difficult it is to finally admit that maybe you're wrong. And I gave the example of this. In 1954, there was a cult in the United States that was established by a lady named Dorothy Martin. And she apparently had been contacted by a group of aliens called the Guardians, who are from the planet Clarion. And they had told her that there was going to be a biblical-like flood of the world, and that only the people who believed the Guardians were going to be saved, and the Guardians were going to beam them up and save them from the flood. These three social psychologists found out about this cult and decided to join the cult. And they did, and then they traveled to Dorothy Martin. It was one of the Midwestern states, and they gathered on the day of the apocalypse, and they sat there with the whole cult and counted down to the moment it was supposed to happen. And it didn't happen. Dorothy jumped up and said, "Oh, she just got a communication from the Guardians that there's been a 6-hour delay, that in fact the flood's going to happen 6 hours from now." So everybody sat there for another 6 hours, and they counted down. And when the clock struck that time, the flood didn't happen. Nobody got beamed up by the Guardians. Rather than admit they had a false belief, they doubled down with increased fervor and proselytized even greater that this was going to happen. It was a true prediction. We just have the timing wrong. And I pointed out in this lecture to the medical society, that's exactly what they have done now. Rather than admit they're wrong, what they did 2 years ago was change their definition. As I mentioned earlier, that hyperbaric oxygen now is only a therapy that can be done at 2 atmospheres of pure oxygen or higher. That level is above the dose that's been done in all the traumatic brain injury studies. So rather than say they're wrong, they're now just making it such that all of these studies are irrelevant. We don't even know what they are, but they don't apply, and they're not hyperbaric oxygen. So we're not going to approve hyperbaric oxygen for traumatic brain injury and PTSD. And that was my application to them to approve it, which they voted down last June for the second time. So it's the belief system of these doctors. And the problem is that they have reach and are considered the authoritative group in the United States that the Food and Drug Administration, Medicare, insurance companies look to for authority on this subject. And they're wrong. And that's what's holding up the application of this to all of these veterans and civilians worldwide. Because once it's done in the US by this group and acknowledged and approved by the FDA and Medicare, the main government reimburser, it goes worldwide. And that's where we're stopped out. And that's why I'm going to re-record this lecture and put it on the internet.
What do you think?
I was thinking in any crime, who benefits from it and who benefits from suppressing that? And it's people who make money, like insurance companies, like the government, and yeah, there is the belief system, but and I don't know the topic. I discovered it. I'd never heard of it, and I really find that there's that money aspect behind it.
Oh,
I'm going
there
to
is.
But
There,
but the veterans the government spends so much money on the veterans' medications.
yeah.
It would be better
Yes, but
to heal the
something in
brain.
there.